Hello and welcome to our webinar on DataPlus Mobile. This specific webinar will show how you can use DataPlus Mobile for creating field forms for fisheries data collection. In today's webinar, we'll have an overview of DataPlus Mobile, talk about new features that we've had and have added to DataPlus Professional, the precursor to DataPlus Mobile, and then we'll show 3 fisheries case studies: electrofishing, shellfish sampling case study, and a creel census case study, and how we use various DataPlus tools and features to make field data collection more efficient, more accurate. And then we'll go into services and support and resources that are available to DataPlus customers to help them build their own applications. This is an example of a typical fisheries field form. This is an electrofishing field form, and we'll be showing how we can go from a traditional pencil and paper data sheet and take this from running on a handheld where you have user-friendly prompts and all of the columns that you want to see, to having data on your computer in a user-friendly format such as an Excel file, Microsoft Access database file, or even a shape file for Esri GIS users. Components of DataPlus. DataPlus package consists of the application generator, which runs on your local laptop or desktop PC. This is where you create your DataPlus applications. We have a DPC edit program. We find that about 90% or more of applications that people are generating can be done within the application generator. However, there are some customers that have custom calculations, lookup fields, things like this, that are outside of what we can do in the application builder. So we provide a tool called DPC Edit that allows them to go in and, working from the code level, write custom routines and programs, and then you can embed these in the program and choose where within your application you want these routines to run. The other component of the DataPlus package purchase is the host communication software. DataPlus Host is used for a variety of things. It runs along with Microsoft ActiveSync or Mobile Device Center and is used to load DataPlus on your various handhelds, get data back from the field, as well as install and load new applications onto your handheld. We also have a data file editor. The data comes in from the field in a raw binary format and can be converted to a number of different file formats depending on what you want to do. For example, you can get an MDB file, a DBF, an ASCII file, of which we're saying that the Microsoft Excel file is one of these options. Shapefile conversion, where you can map and export to an ODBC. Now, this doesn't have to be exclusive to either one of these. You may have a GIS person working in your office. They may want your data in a shapefile format so that they can actually put that out to their GIS, where you may be using that data in Microsoft Access or Excel. So you can convert it multiple ways. The package also includes a single handheld license, so you can run your data collection app in the field on your Microsoft Windows mobile device or on your full-blown Windows 7, 8, or 10 device. And then lastly, technical support. Most people within an organization will have at least one application generator, and then depending on how their offices are distributed, they may have multiple host communication software and data file editors for communicating with remote devices and downloading data, and then of course many handheld licenses for their field data collection. So if we start by looking at our typical field data form, this is a Creel census form. You typically have multiple levels in your form. We call the top part of this header information. Typically includes such things such as date, location, the crew, maybe subsites that they're working at, and then you get down into the meat of your field data collection. In this case, they're looking at subsections, river sections, tackle being used, whether the fishermen are onshore or in a boat. Is it a guided trip? How many anglers are in there? And then there's a section over here that's talking about the angler's catch, and then another section with detailed information about their catch, such as male or female species, fork length, weight, if it's been marked, and if so, what type of tag is on it. And then with this paper data sheet, you can see that the options that the Creel clerk actually completes the form with are down at the bottom of the form. So if we think about this and visualize this, how do we make this work in the DataPlus application generator? So with the next screen, we'll show you what this project would look like as we start to build this in the application generator. First, before we go that way, we want to talk about different levels and branches. DataPlus allows up to 5 different levels, and each level can have up to 26 child branches, with each file having up to 250 columns each. So if we look at this example in this flowchart right here, level 1 could be the header information, and then we have level 2 where we're getting down into some of the meat of the data collection. And then level 3, we have 3 child branches in this example right here. However, we can have 26 of these tied to a parent level. And then you'll see we have a level 4 also, and these 2 level 4 siblings are tied to level 3 sibling 3, and then you can also have a level 5, as many of those siblings as you want. In this flowchart example, we're showing that there's 2 siblings, level 5 sibling 1 and level 5 sibling 2, tied to level 4 sibling 1. So you can structure your field data application kind of in this way, using this as an example. So from the paper data sheet that we showed 2 screens ago, we're breaking this down into 3 different levels. So level 1 is the header information. Level 2 contains all of these fields under this grouping called columns. For example, the river subsection that we identified, river section, we created a field for tackle, fishing mode, whether it was guided or not, etc. And then we have a level 3 where we're collecting additional level, in this case having to do with the catch. DataPlus contains many features to help you in the field efficiently collect data as quickly as possible and to make that data collection as accurate as possible. One of these features that we want to emphasize right here are air checking. So you easily add air checks to a field by highlighting that particular field. So in this case, under the columns table, we highlight tackle, and then we click on the Airchecks tab, go to Aircheck type, hit the drop-down box, and there will be a number of different options that pop up. And in this case, we're doing a list file. So we have 3 options that are available, and only 3 options that can be entered when somebody is prompted to enter the tackle type that's being used. In this case, fly, lure, and bait. Now there's a lot of tools that we can customize with as well. In this case, we're using a string and a translate option. So you're prompted to make these selections when you're creating your Aircheck files. So in this case, to speed things along, the Creel clerk can simply press the number 1 and it will enter fly in there. They can press the number 2 and it will load lure. Or if they can't remember what these codes are, they can always press the F2 key. It'll bring up a drop-down list and they can tap on a selection from there, or they can just simply type in fly, lure, or bait. Now we can also do minimum maximum range checks, and these could even be species specific. For example, if the species that entered is something small, like a mottled sculpin, you might set a minimum maximum range on that of maybe 10 millimeters to 100 millimeters, and I'm just throwing out a random example. So you can have air checks that are actually specific to a field that is filled in a previous column. So minimum maximum range checks, list file. We just showed the example with the tackle in this application. Air checks related to data in other columns. We gave the example of the minimum maximum range check that's species specific. Custom user air check programs, so you can use the DataPlus custom routine generator to create your own user air check programs. And then we have routines in there where you can check for missing data within your applications before you leave the field and go back to the office. Other features that we have to accelerate productivity in the field and make field data collection as quick as possible is, as you're entering data, again, you would highlight a specific field. In this case, we've highlighted date in level 1, and we click on the data entry tab. So this is basically saying how we want the data entered into the application when we get to that specific prompt. In this case, we're setting up date to be auto-entered from the internal time clock of the field device that's being used. So auto month, day, and year, as soon as the prompt for date comes up, that's automatically put in there and advanced to the next column. Other things that we can do is copy data forward. This is a good thing to use in fisheries. For example, if you're doing electrofishing and you're processing fish, usually this is done in batches, like you might have a whole tub full of anesthetized rainbow trout. So to save you from entering rainbow trout or a abbreviation for that every time you're prompted for species, you can set a cell to copy data forward for you. So it'll automatically load that and advance to the next column. For example, load rainbow trout, advance to length or weight. And if you all of a sudden come across another fish, you just simply hit the left arrow button, go back to the species field, put a new species designation in there, and it'll start copying that one forward. Now, if you're keeping track of numbers of things, like maybe the number of fish, you can have a value increment from the value in the cell above. You can read date and time, like we're doing, from the internal time clock. You can preload constant data. And if you're doing a lot of research work and maybe sampling certain sections of a river or things like this, you can have a random number generator come up in there to help you out, so you have unbiased data in your research work. Other tools that we have in DataPlus to help speed field data collection is the ability to integrate and read data from external devices and sensors, such as radio frequency ID tags, global positioning systems, digital calipers, fish boards, and any other things that you can think of. Some nice pictures here kind of showing an electronic fish board tied to an Allegro, in this case an older Allegro CX, that's pulling data off of these fish boards. Other features within DataPlus to accelerate your productivity in the field are customization of screens, so you can define how your data forms look on the screen. We call these options line display, line align display, which is simply centering the line display, or a virtual display. And I believe in the next slide or two we have some examples of these. You can choose single or double line prompts. You can show columns on subsequent screens. For example, you might have a form that has maybe 30 columns or fields on it. If there's a column over on the far left and you only see a small window within this datasheet view, you can carry a column with you. You can also have information on top of your data screens, and we'll show some examples of these. For example, if you're processing crabs from traps and you want to make sure that the ones that you're measuring and taking data on are from a specific trap, you can actually carry that data with you. You can have view only or hide columns. An example of this, for example, you might have a Creo clerk out there interviewing fishermen, and you want to keep track of how efficient he's being with his time and how much time he's spending with each fisherman. You can actually put a time column in there. So as he starts that interview, it records the time, and as he ends it, it records the time, but this is totally hidden to him. You can have custom help messages for each column, and we'll show some examples of that. Very good option if you have technicians or clerks that are working with you just for the summer months. Helps alleviate a lot of training for them, because as they cursor to a specific column, they'll have a help message on the bottom that tells them what data needs to be entered for that column. And then you can easily format data for different handhelds. There's getting to be a lot of different types and sizes of handheld screens out there. Ones with no keypads, some with full keypads, some with landscape screens, some with portrait. So we've made the DataPlus screen so it looks good on any type of handheld that you'll be using. Here's some examples of different DataPlus layouts. So we essentially have the same application running on the same handheld, but just showing different ways that you can set that up, just depending on your own personal preferences. Here's an example of how you can create custom column help messages. So in this case, if we look over at the column for crew, so we highlighted that, and then we go up and click on the tab for column display, we can type in a custom column help message. So when the prompt gets to the field crew, this custom column help message over here, crew initials recorder first, comes up, so that they know if they're entering a crew out there and maybe there's 3 people, that the person that's recording the data, their initials go in first, and then everybody else's initials will be behind that. Other features within DataPlus to increase productivity are we have 4 levels of touchscreen support. We gave the example of some mobile field devices having full keypads, some just having numeric keypads, some having no keypad at all. So under the system setup, you can go in there and tell it what type of device that you're using and how much you want to rely on the touch screen versus the keyboard, and work out a configuration that's optimum for your field data collection. Other cool features to accelerate productivity are data flow control. We include some tools called jump tables that allow specific movement to one column based on data from other columns, column searches, and missing data checks. And in DataPlus Mobile, a really neat feature is we've really enhanced the GPS integration. In the previous version, DataPlus Professional, you could always integrate your GPS data within your applications. However, we've greatly simplified that in DataPlus Mobile. So you just insert a latitude, longitude, and elevation fields in there, and then go to the GPS tab and click on whether you want to collect that spatial information as a point, as a line, or as a polygon. If you're collecting that as a point, you have the option of storing that data within the branch record or storing that to a separate file, and then other options as far as do you want to average data to increase accuracy, the ability to override the averaging, and making these required fields or not. Now, if you're recording the spatial data as lines or polygons, these data are always stored as separate files. So there'll be a column name that associates it with your specific application, but that spatial information isn't recorded in the branch record as it is as an option when you're collecting point data. And as we discussed, DataPlus easily accommodates different handheld sizes. Here we see 2 different devices, one that has a portrait screen and the other one that has a screen laid out in a landscape format, and just kind of showing how DataPlus runs on there. Now, we also discussed some devices like the Archer 2 from Juniper Systems that does not have a full-blown keypad, just a numeric keypad, and DataPlus relies on function keys for bringing down drop-down lists or advancing or retreating from different levels. So in this case, we've chosen an option to have a virtual function key laid out across the bottom of the screen. Now we want to talk about DataPlus Host a little bit. DataPlus Host is an integrated communication software for Microsoft Windows and Windows mobile devices. It's an overlay to Microsoft ActiveSync, which was in Microsoft Windows XP, and Windows Mobile Device Center, which is in Microsoft Windows Vista, Windows 7, 8, and 10 operating systems. DataPlus Host allows file transfer between the PC and handheld GPS or tablet, and it can run in the background or unattended. This is a screenshot of what DataPlus looks like, so anytime you do a connection from your field device to your computer, it shows you the current activity, puts a date and time on there, and basically everything that happened within this communication session. And then all of this information is logged, which is very handy for troubleshooting. If you ever have any issues or wonder where a file was parked on your computer, you can go back and look at this log. Now up near the top, we have some really intuitive icons that basically prompt you as to what actions you should be taking. For example, if you have a brand new handheld and you want to put the DataPlus framework on that handheld, you click on the install icon. If you want to send an application over to that handheld, you could put as many applications on those mobile devices as you want. Click on the send app. If you want to retrieve or receive data, there's an icon for that. So this basically just helps you work with your mobile device and get applications on that device and data off of the device. What we're going to do now is show 3 different case studies and some examples of tools within DataPlus that can be used to help optimize data collection for those specific field forms. So in this case, we're breaking up the electrofishing, a very simple field data form, and just show how we're using some DataPlus tools to capture data in this form. So this is an example of what the form would look like in DataPlus, and in this case we're using a really cool feature in DataPlus called a branch control. So with this, we've highlighted and we're working with this recapture field. So in this scenario, the person is recording species information, length, weight, whether or not that particular fish has been recaptured, and if it has, where is the mark or what is the mark that's on it. Now obviously, if the fish hasn't been recaptured, we don't want to bother with a mark. We want to just skip right over that field. So we go into our branch control tab and we choose the specific field recapture, and we make that mark a required field if we answer yes to recapture. If we answer no, and then we go over to mark and tell it that this is an empty or a skip field. So just one very simple example of how you can use the branch control feature to require or skip over data in another field based on data that is previously entered. Also, another example of a list file Aircheck. So when the person enters the species field, we have an Aircheck file that's created with 3 different columns: a string, a translate, and a meaning. What the string means is that they can enter a number and it will actually translate that number into a 3-letter abbreviation for the species. Yet for the help of the person in the field, we also have a meaning column there. So if you have a person working with you that's not familiar with your species and the abbreviations, they can always press a button and it'll bring up this drop-down list containing the string, the translate, and the meaning. So in the field, there would be 3 different ways to get data into that column when they're prompted for species. One is they could simply enter a number like a 4, and in this case it would load CTT for cutthroat trout, and then it automatically advance to the next field, which would be length. Or they could actually enter the 3-letter abbreviation if they knew what it was. For example, if they just typed in RBT off the keyboard, it would advance them to the next field. So that's what we call a translated air check with a meaning column. And this is an example of what it would look like running on the handheld in the field. So if they press the F2 button, it brings up the pick list. They would see a list like this, and at that point they could simply tap on whichever fish species they want, and it would load it into that field and advance them to the next one. The second example that we want to do, we'll go to the ocean now, and we'll talk about a stone crab data collection form. On the left of this screen right here, we can see what the client's paper data sheet looked like. They were collecting and analyzing all of the data in the Microsoft Access database, and were collecting just numeric data out in the field. For example, if they wanted to know what crab type was, instead of entering alive, molt, or dead, they would just enter 1, 2, or 3, or in this case they would circle it on the form. So that's how all of their field data collection was being entered, so it was very easy to recreate this in DataPlus. So you'll see in this example that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of field data collection, with the 2 siblings at level 4 tied to the crab data in level 3. So you can see the 4 different levels right there, and basically how those would be created within the DataPlus application generator. Now, a really neat feature in DataPlus that they were taking advantage of is when they got to the mark and color category in level 4, they were using digital calipers to measure the carapace width on the stone crab. So if we highlighted CW, the abbreviation for carapace width, on this level 4, and then clicked on data entry, we could go to user data entry type, hit the drop down arrow, and choose serial port, which would bring up this box over here on the right. And then from the little user's guide on communication for that device, we would fill in these values right here, what communication port we were bringing that data in through, the speed of the information or the baud rate, and other communication information. So out in the field, when you're using this, as soon as you get to the carapace width, you take your digital calipers, take that measurement, press a button on the digital calipers, and it would send that width data to DataPlus to be stored in the appropriate field. So a very nice way to use external devices, in this case digital calipers. Now, another feature that was used in this application was a coded error check. So in this case, we also have a list Aircheck file that we're building, but you'll see, as opposed to the electrofishing example, there's now only 2 columns in it. So we didn't use the translate option in this. They can only access a number from 1 to 7, but we do have a meaning column associated with that, so that their staff out in the boats would know that 2 equaled a broken slat, 3 equals a lid tie missing, 6 equaled traps robbed, etc. Now, a really nice feature that we discussed earlier, especially for fields that have application sheets that have a lot of fields in it, is what we call a constant column display. So as we're collecting data, if we want to know information about a level that was higher than us, we can keep track of that data in a row across the top of the data that we're collecting. So we click on Screen Define and go to this constant column display and go to our list of available columns, and choose things like we want to keep track of the crab number, the trap, the type, and the sex, so that we always have that data available to us no matter what lower level we're working in. So we're working in this level 4, sibling 1, crab injury level, and we just simply tell it, so to keep track of where we're at, I want to have this crab number, trap, and type, and everything information on the top. So that's the information that's in green on this display right here. So this little window is actually the window from the field data collector and what it would look like, and then I have all of the information that I'm collecting underneath that green display. So I know that, hey, if I take a break or I'm interrupted, what I was working on right now is crab number 1, and I'm taking all of these measurements regarding it, claw type, etc. Now for our third example, we'll go back briefly to this Creel census case study sheet, again showing what the field form would look like, what it looks like when we're creating it in DataPlus. In this case, the feature that we want to highlight is what we call a conditional level 3. So if there are species caught in this level of other species, so in level 2, column 18, there's an other species, and we may or may not have other species. So in this case, they're targeting steelhead, but if they encounter other species, then they would actually advance to level 3. So if there are other species caught and this field has a Y in it, then you can press the F5 and advance enters you to level 3, where you can take additional information about these additional or other species that have been caught. Okay, so that's it for our case studies. Now I just want to go through some DataPlus mobile services that are available for you. A lot of people don't have the time or the resources to develop their own DataPlus mobile application. So we can contract with you to create those applications for you. So that cost to do that would be based on the number of hours that we think will take to develop that application, and that estimate can be provided to you based on existing paper data sheets or a detailed written description of your application. Now, some other resources that we're making available to you to help you with your applications is we're starting to put applications out on our website. I believe right now there's 2 fisheries examples and 1 forestry example. And these are free and offered to you, so you can just take these and modify them to fit your own personal needs as opposed to starting from scratch. Now, just to show you, we've had DataPlus out for a very long time. DataPlus was developed in the late 80s, back before Microsoft was even developing operating systems to run on mobile rugged field computers. We actually wrote DataPlus to run on proprietary operating systems. And then we've transitioned this to DOS-based systems, and ever since then I've just been trying to keep track of all of the upgrades and updates by Microsoft for Windows Mobile and full-blown Windows handhelds. And that's probably been the biggest thing that we've seen lately with the release of DataPlus Mobile. Is in the past, for the past decade or more, we've always had to run devices that had Microsoft Windows Mobile operating systems. Now you can run tablets and other devices, tablets, rugged laptops that have full-blown Windows 7, 8, and 10 on them for your field data collection. Another resource that we make available for you to help you create your own applications is a DataPlus tutorial. So when you download a demo copy of DataPlus or a full-blown version that you've purchased, there's a document subfolder that's created underneath the DataPlus program. Within that document subfolder, there's about 9 or 10 manuals in there specific to different components of DataPlus. For example, there's a user's guide for the application generator, a user's guide for the host, a user's guide for the data converter, a user's guide for the DataPlus running on your mobile data collector. Now there's also a tutorial. And we've taken a lot of time and attention to creating this tutorial and making it very easy to follow with a number of lessons in there. I believe in the current version there's about 12 or 13 lessons that start out very basic, helping you create your application, adding data entry options, defining how the screen looks, creating basic error checks, and on through that to the point of using external sensors. So even though we're using a forestry application in the example, we feel that anybody should be able to take these lessons and transpose them over to your specific application, whether it be wildlife, fisheries, range, or any other myriad of data collection that you have. So utilize the DataPlus tutorial. It's a great resource. And then lastly, try it out. We give you the ability to go onto our website, download a demonstration version of DataPlus Mobile. The demonstration version you'll find is exactly like the purchased version, with one exception, and that's that we're limiting you to a number of uses for that and for a limited number of lines of data that can be actually collected on there. But that should definitely give you enough time and exposure to determine whether or not DataPlus Mobile can be a good fit for your data collection. And lastly, just want to introduce other products and services that are available through Frontier Precision, such as professional GIS services. We can specialize in field data collection crews. We have water and weather monitoring instrumentation, an environmental database that we offer, software and hardware for vector control, UAS products and services, custom software development, and rental of rugged field data collection units and global positioning systems. And we also have factory authorized repair, technical support, and training services. Thank you very much for attending the presentation. My contact information is on the lower left of the screen, so feel free to email me or visit our website to check out our many resources. Thanks again.